in the Daily Mail today, there's a picture of 3 police officers in France, French police, watching as a load of migrants get on a dinghy and sail off to Britain. They've even got a picture of one particular migrant in France and then a picture of them in Britain. Let's talk to Henry Bolton, OBE, International Border Control Expert. Henry, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Morning.
Slightly ironic, I thought, that on this day, the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the French customs officials have managed to set themselves up with a little table and chair so that they can check out the paras who have done a parachute drop into Normandy to commemorate the Second World War, and they're being asked for their papers.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's a bit ironic, as you say, because they don't seem to be doing the same monitoring of people leaving the borders. And actually, there is an international agreement called the OSCE Border Security and Management Concept, which is signed up to by France and by the UK and in fact, every EU member state, that in which they acknowledge that they have an equal responsibility to ensure that people leaving their borders have the correct documentation, just as much as they have a responsibility to do the same for people entering their borders. Clearly, that's not something that the French are paying much heed to, that international agreement they signed up to.
No, because there's pictures, pictures this morning that you've probably seen of 3 French police officers wearing what looks like riot gear, actually, but they're standing on a beach just sort of looking out to sea as yet another dinghy leaves their shores.
Yeah, look, there are all sorts of things the French could do. The French have a law that says that once a vessel is at sea, then it's no longer within their jurisdiction. So the powers of the police under French law are limited. Now, that's not making an excuse for them, because the French government needs to change that. But where is the pressure from the UK government on the French government to change that? I don't really see it. There's a lot we could do to engage with the French differently. We keep sort of throwing brickbats at them, but I suspect behind closed doors there's a bit of more diplomatic effort going on. But the French really, what we're trying to steer them towards doing is difficult for them for all sorts of legal reasons, not least that they're members of the European Union, and a lot of the policy isn't governed by them, but by the European Commission, who I personally believe have shown a track record of trying to be difficult to the UK. But we could be working with the French. The French don't want these people any more than we do. And we could be working with the French to do something called upstream disruption, to try and interrupt the flow before it even gets to France. But we've not engaged with them at that level. That's a failure of the Home Office. You were talking about your conversation with Major General Chip Chapman just now. One of the things he talked about there was the level of planning that went into D-Day. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. And I used to be a military planner, and the detail that you look at, the second and third order effects, the various risk factors and everything else, there's a huge amount of stuff that's crunched together. And you have to do it in a very short period of time. This isn't months and months. Well, in D-Day, it was months and months, but some operations have to be put together in weeks. And there is no reason why the UK can't apply that sort of approach to dealing with this, in which case we would be dealing with France differently, we'd be dealing with the organised crime differently, we'd be dealing with the processing differently. Every aspect of this demonstrates to me a failure of planning ability within government and within the Home Office and within the civil service.
And presumably the European Union has to pick up some of the flak for this as well. And I'm interested in a piece in the Times today on page 28 from The Hague, written by Bruno Waterfield, who says there's going to be an awful lot of changes in the EU. There's an election coming up. Sunday night, I think we get the results. But an awful lot of populist parties are going to get in because there's all sorts of problems in the European Union in the way that it's run, in the way that, migration policy is kind of thought through. Because there's a poll out which says fewer than 5% of people in Holland, in the Netherlands, are convinced that the EU's binding common asylum and migration policy is working. More than 2/3 of them, 68%, believe it is a failure. And so I wonder if there are some right-wingers that get into power in the EU, that might change things.
There will be, Mike. And we are an aberration in the UK. I mean, we like to be different, don't we? But in this case, it's quite bizarre. I don't quite understand why, apart from the education system. But in just about every European member state, the young people are increasingly voting for centre-right parties. Because I've just come back from Denmark, and it's quite interesting there, talking to some of the younger people, I'm talking 18 to 25-year-olds, who are going to be voting in the European elections for right-wing parties, and in Denmark, in general elections, are going to be voting for right-wing parties because they understand, young people understand, that the reason that they're finding it difficult to get accommodation and housing is because of the rate of immigration.
Yeah.
They understand that violent crime is going up. But Copenhagen is just across the water from Malmo, and most people will be aware that Malmo has seen all the sort of immigrant gang-related violence going on and so on. You've got all of these things, but across Europe, people are moving to the centre-right, particularly young people. In the UK, it's the opposite. People have been moving to the left, particularly young people, because they have been indoctrinated by the left. And we've had a government, a centre-right government, supposedly, that has failed utterly in its messaging about what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely right. And has also let people down on many of the promises it made in 2019 at the last election.
Absolutely. Talking politics for a moment, this isn't an election that Labour are going to win. This is an election that the Conservative Party is going to lose. So nobody's particularly enamoured with Labour, apart from the hardcore sort of socialists and the woke brigade who think they'll get what they want through there, including more open borders. You referred earlier to the EU's asylum and migration pact. I'm utterly convinced that Keir Starmer's plan for stopping the boats is to become a member or part of that pact, agree to join that pact, and agree to take these same people that are coming across on small boats as part of an official share of the EU's asylum quota. That's how he's planning to stop the boats. He's not answering the question, and that basically is an open door.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Listen, we've got to run. Sorry, Henry, thank you very much indeed. Henry Bolton, OBE there, International Border Control Expert.